So, we're diving into that interview clip discussing China's journey to winning the future, right? It really touches on some intense historical points starting from 1931 when Japanese forces invaded and, well, caused massive
Yep,
devastation.
exactly. And it's interesting how the narrative contrasts the approaches of different fascist regimes. Like, the interview points out that while the Germans apologized after their actions, the Japanese never really did that, which seems to have had a huge impact on China's national psyche.
Yeah, it's like they say that historical trauma became a driving force in shaping modern Chinese resolve. When you think about it, 35 million lives lost in 1931 is not just a statistic, it's a monumental event that pushed China onto a unique path in global affairs.
Absolutely. And the interview, hosted by George Galloway, really digs into how these historical memories are more than just past events. They play a key role in shaping China's future strategies.
Right, and it's fascinating because it's not just about the past, but also about how narratives are used today. I mean, it's like the way China weaves its historical experiences into its modern identity. It's almost like a continuous thread that just, guides policy and perspective.
Yeah. So, in the interview, Li Jingjing explains that the impact of the 1931 invasion wasn't isolated, it's been a major part of their national story. The fact that Japan never issued an apology, unlike Germany, seems to solidify that sense of grievance and purpose.
Exactly. And when you consider that, it kind of makes you reflect on how unresolved historical issues can be, well, used as kind of a catalyst for mobilizing national sentiment and sometimes policy, right?
Indeed. You know, that raises a heck of a question. Do you think that using such historical motives is a double edged sword? I mean, while it can unite a nation, it could also perpetuate cycles of resentment and aggression.
That's a good point. I do wonder if, in some ways, it might hinder progress if, say, the focus remains too fixed on past wounds rather than moving forward. But then again, some would argue that acknowledging and integrating historical experience is what fuels their long term strategic
Yeah, I can
vision.
see that. And isn't it intriguing how the interview also underlines the idea of winning the future? Almost like China isn't just defending its past, but is actively shaping the narrative for a global tomorrow?
Totally. It's like there's this framing where history isn't just a story that's been told, but also a promise or a roadmap to the future. They're saying, look, we've been through unimaginable loss, and now we're using that as a springboard to not only catch up, but to lead.
Right, kind of like when you have a dark past and then you decide, we're not victims, we're the architects of tomorrow. Do you think that narrative actually captures the complexity of China's modern achievements?
It does capture an interesting layer. On one side, it's powerful propaganda, but on
Yeah,
the other
exactly.
side, it's a real reflection of the challenges they've faced historically, and they've turned that into a sort of, well, a competitive edge.
Sure, but I have to respectfully challenge that a little. While there's this brilliant narrative about resilience and progress, doesn't it also risk oversimplifying the myriad of factors that contributed to China's rise to power? I mean, we're talking about economic reforms, technological leaps, and global diplomacy intertwined with historical memory.
That's a fair point. Sure, the narrative simplifies a bit to maintain a compelling storyline. It's like, a movie script that omits some of the more nuanced details. And while it captures the emotional punch of history, it might neglect the economic and political intricacies that fueled
Right,
the
yeah.
recovery and modernization.
And then there's the whole role of international relationships. The interview barely touches on like the global context in which China rose. It seems somewhat inward focused, even though international politics played a huge role.
Yep, exactly. It does celebrate that inner strength, but sometimes the bigger picture gets a bit missed out. The interplay between Chinese policy and, say, global trade dynamics or US-China
Good
relations.
call. But then, isn't it also part of the charm? I mean, by zeroing in on that historical trauma and subsequent recovery, it creates a very potent, almost mythical narrative of China's rebirth, serving as motivation on a massive scale.
Totally, it becomes almost like a national epic, right? Like, from the ashes we rise resonates deeply with people. It's well, in a lot of ways, an effective way to secure national unity and drive ambition.
Exactly, exactly. And what about that part where they draw comparisons to fascist regimes? It's such a bold juxtaposition, comparing how apologies were made or not made. That's an audacious narrative tool.
Oh, absolutely. It's like saying, look, history could have taken a very different course if certain moral reparations had been made. It's a way to differentiate not just between two regimes, but also to underline a moral high ground China claims to have.
Yeah, it's a strong message. Interesting how that ties back into modern geopolitical games. Do you think that kind of moral positioning is effective on today's international stage?
Well, I think it definitely has its appeal. It sets up a kind of contrast between we have acknowledged our past and we're moving forward versus we haven't taken responsibility. That can have strong resonance, in international diplomacy.
Yet, some critics might argue that it oversimplifies the complex moral and political failures of history into a binary opposition.
True, and that's where we hit the delicate balance of using historical memory in political narratives. It's like you want to inspire pride, but you risk glossing over certain painful and complicated truths in the process.
Exactly. And, the interview itself, being from a prominent figure like George Galloway, adds another layer to all this. His style is provocative, and he often doesn't shy away from stirring the pot, which makes the content even more layered and contentious.
Absolutely. His presentation style brings that raw, unfiltered energy, which means the message gets amplified. And whether you agree with his framing or not, it definitely pushes you to reflect on how narratives are built in international politics.
Yep, indeed. And don't forget the details like the hashtags and social media dynamics mentioned, moats, China, Japan. They help frame the conversation in a global digital context, right?
Oh, for sure. It's like these tags function as mini signposts, guiding the conversation across platforms and emphasizing key themes. It also shows how narratives evolve, not just in speeches or interviews, but in, the digital sphere as well.
That's true. So, overall, this interview creates a very compelling story by juxtaposing historical wounds with a forward-looking resolve. Yet, it leaves us with a fair bit to chew on regarding the complexities of using that history.
Exactly. And it invites us to consider how history is interwoven with national identity and future ambitions. It's not a simple cause and effect. It's layered, messy, and deeply symbolic.
Yeah, indeed. And the power of narrative, man, it's impressive. Even if, as we discussed, it may oversimplify some realities. It's a reminder that the stories nations tell about themselves can be as potent as their policies.
Right. And it sparks debate on whether these narratives are a strategy for unity and progress, or sometimes a means to sidestep confronting more complicated truths of history.
Absolutely. Looking back, the interview provides a vivid snapshot of how historical memory is weaponized and at times celebrated to drive national ambition. How do you see that influencing future global relations?
I think it sets a precedent. When you shape the narrative of a nation's struggle and triumph, you create a form of soft power that can influence not just domestic sentiment, but international perspectives as well. It's like a double edged sword that, while uniting internally, also sends a message to the world.
Exactly right. This discussion really underscores how history, narrative, and international policy are entangled. It's a fascinating topic that definitely leaves room for more debate and analysis.
Yep, and that's what makes it so, engaging. The intersection of past traumas, present politics, and visions for the future creates endless avenues for conversation, even if some aspects are not entirely black and white.
Totally agree. So, lots to ponder, from the role of historical grievances to the grand design of modern strategy. It really makes you think about how nations construct their identities and how that shapes the global order.
Exactly. And while the interview uses strong, provocative language, it serves as a spark for broader conversations about power, memory, and the future. It's been great unpacking these ideas with you.
Right, absolutely. And with that, we leave you with a lot to think about: the past's influence on the future and the narratives that bind them together. Thanks for joining in on this deep dive discussion.